Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, salutations, greetings, happy whatever, we're here for another episode of Train Talk from Milepost 141. This is our SoundTraxx Soundbites podcast. Now, as you've seen, we've had these guys making a little bit of noise over this, so we'll be talking about those here in a little bit.
Yeah, they're for later though. They're SoundTraxx demo models that we've pulled out for our special discussion today.
Correct. So I feel like we need a intro theme song. We need to find a theme song because whenever I come up with this, hello everybody, it feels like we should be, hey, welcome to SoundTraxx Soundbites, and then da 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 da, and
Well, if we find one, I'm sure we can let Mackenzie know.
Yeah, we'll let her know. But I was thinking it would be funny because it's kind of like one of those Charles in Charge or Different Strokes or whatever those type of theme songs from those days. That was a little before your time, though. You probably have never heard of either of them.
No. But I know sort of what of you speak because a lot of TV shows do have them.
Oh yeah, I know. But I was trying to go back into the Wayback Machine to predate you. So, anyway.
I mean, considering I've watched Star Trek TOS, at least some of it.
TOS.
The original series,
oh, yeah.
The one from the 60s.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. So, see, I know what we do. What's this going on here? Okay. I was just making sure the track was coupled in. Anyway, we're sitting here wasting a bunch of time.
What, that isn't the point of the podcast?
Well, maybe.
I keep going on and on about how if we do a podcast, it's going to keep growing in length until it's gone from, 20 minutes to 3 hours. But you keep not believing me, and this is what happens.
Yeah, I don't want a 3-hour podcast.
Neither do I, but this is what's going to happen.
Well, let's keep working on it. No, so, well, I'm just kidding. Anyway, today we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about our latest models, which, as you can see, as he mentioned, these are our trade show demos here. So we don't have any models here to show you, but we do have some pictures to share with you as well. So we'll do with that. And then the other topic, we'll get into some aspects of our Blunami that are really turning heads, taking people by storm. They're certainly loving that aspect of it, and that's what we got here to talk about. So I guess first off, you want to talk about any projects you've been working on?
Well, I don't have it here, but I've sort of in pieces my P5A. If you've actually been paying somewhat close attention to some of our main videos on the YouTube channel, occasionally you'll notice a little blue N-scale electric locomotive. That's my P5A. You know what? Fun challenge for you. See if you can spot all the videos it shows up in.
There you go.
Put it in the comments if you think you've got all of them. But I've got that one apart at the moment again because the wires going to its pantograph light have fatigued and broken.
Oops.
So, I need to go back in and replace those and fix that and get it working again.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's one of the frustrating things about putting wires on moving parts because it just sits there and does this and eventually fatigues and potentially breaks.
Especially with those really tiny wires, because if it was something like our regular 32 gauge wire that we use on like the TSU 1100, it'd be fine because those can flex. The problem is I'm having to use really, really, really tiny wire.
Yeah, because N-scale trying to hide a wire on a pantograph is not the easiest thing in the world. So kudos for that, but good luck, and keep us posted on your progress.
Yeah, at the moment it's currently in pieces while I try and find a suitable wire type.
Gotcha.
So far I've been unsuccessful in my search.
Yeah, when you get really down to stranded wire, if you end up with only 3 or 4 or 5 strands in it, then it's flexible as hell, but it breaks.
Yeah, I've been considering trying magnet wire just because...
The biggest thing there, if you were to do magnet wire, you could probably get away with it, but where it bends, you probably want to have more than just the angle. You want to have like a loop or something so that when it bends, instead of folding, you want it to kind of...
To curl,
curl, so... Because I'm running into some of that type of issues on my grade crossings.
Okay.
because I've been installing those grade crossings, and I've got the lights on the arm, but they're all made with magnet wire. And so when you have the gates moving up and down, it has the habit of potentially making a hinge. So I'm trying to work around that, and that's kind of what I did, was kind of twisted them together and put them in the microscale crystal clear, and then painted it black so it looks like a black conduit, but it's curved. And then there's one spot where I had to do a repair, so that's created a hinge, and so I'm back to square one. So I got to go and do some work on that. So, well, that's, too bad you didn't have it ready. That's a neat looking little model, by the way. Who's it made by?
Originally BLI.
It was originally made by Broadway, and then you upgraded the sound to a SoundTraxx decoder.
Pulled everything out, put in a TSU N18 because I wanted all 6 functions and I couldn't use the 1100 because the other thing I did with it is I actually put in cab lights.
Oh, that's right.
So it has 6 lighting outputs.
Yep, there you go.
It has 6 lights because there's the 2 pantographs, the 2 cab lights because it's a box cab, and the 2 headlights.
Perfect.
So
that's awesome, and that's all in N-scale, folks.
Yeah.
These small-minded folks over here, they really can do some work when they get their mindset to it.
The trick is wire management.
It is always wire management. So
even more so than HO scale, you've got to be on the ball when it comes to cable management and N scale.
And all of us small scale guys are really envious of the larger scale guys because they've got tons of room for wire management.
Yeah, I look at your models and I go, how is it that you're having trouble finding spots for wires? There's tons of room here.
Excuse me, folks. I'm just trying to get over the end of a cold. So I've got a little bit of a raspy voice still, but for the most part, I'm fine.
More room for me to talk.
Oh, God, no. So, well, anyway, that's cool. That's always been one of my favorites of your projects. I'm just, too bad we didn't have it here to run, because that would have been fun to show off. So, for me, I've kind of been taking a little bit of a detour. I haven't been working on his models of locomotives as much. I've actually been working on doing some buildings and such for my layout.
Okay.
And so one of the things I did, which is, I think it's worthy to show off here, is I took a simple kit. It's one of the Walthers Fuel Loading Kits. I don't remember the part number off the top of my head, but it's just for, a couple of racks along the side of the track to load fuel or oil or whatever into the tank cars. Well, when I started taking apart the kit and getting the parts ready, I realized that the walkway, gangway, floor, whatever you want to call it, is a single solid cast piece. Now, in my modeling, I've been striving for more of the add-on detail.
Yeah.
So, like, I've gone through and sold a lot of my old Athearn Blue Box and AccuRail hopper cars and things like that, because they don't have the see-through walkways on the top of the car and the separately applied
I remember when you were doing that Broadway Limited Big Boy, didn't you end up drilling out the holes in the walkways?
No, I said I was going to. And I never actually did it. But to be fair, the Big Boy is still in the box. I haven't actually finished the project yet, or started it, but it's on my to-do list.
You did that whole feature-length installation guide for it.
That was the 844.
Oh, okay.
That was the 844. So yes, you're right. I did think about doing it there because that's one of the advantages of the Athearn model, I thought, was they had the see-through walkways, and the Broadway Limited didn't. But I went with the Broadway Limited for 2 reasons on the 844, and the Big Boy was primarily biggest weight. And with the way the model was designed, I can put the decoder up inside the boiler along with 2 cube speakers and then utilize their speakers in the tender and then still add more lights. So I had more room in there. Whereas with some of the Athearn, the Big Boy and their Challenger, the weights kind of go the whole length of the body inside of there. So I have to cut weight to make room for a decoder in order to put it on side, because otherwise with only 6 or 8 wires between the locomotive and tender, I have to go add a whole bunch more wires, which then makes the tender to locomotive drawbar a lot more difficult. It's a little bit more of a challenge. So that's kind of the 2 reasons why I chose to go with the Broadway ones, is so that, because I got to do me. I got to add.
You got to add all your lights. Yeah.
I got to do all this stuff, and so putting the decoder inside the boiler certainly made sense. Well, anyway, getting back to this model, kind of the point of it was I've been striving and changing a lot of my models over to go for the higher quality stuff where it's the etched metal, the roller bearing caps, things like that.
The functional ones.
Yep. And so when it came to this kit, I opened it up, and when I realized that the floor, the gangway, whatever, was a solid cast piece, I thought, well, how am I going to put my cars next to that and then have this be like this B or C level kit? I mean, now don't get me wrong, the Walthers kit is actually a pretty nice kit. It's actually a pretty cool assembly and everything, but I decided to go ahead and make it a little better. So as you can see in these photographs here, I actually went and took a piece of etched metal from Plano Products and built a frame out of styrene that mimicked the gangway that was in the kit. And then I took the Plano etched gangway or etched metal walkway and put it on top of it and glued it in place and cut it to shape and everything so that everything would fit. And then once I did that, the kit just fell together because that was the big piece.
Yeah.
Everything was there. Now, in this particular kit, I don't have positionable ramps for the crew members to walk out because I didn't think of that when I was building the frame for the gangway, and so I didn't include dimples or holes to put the ramps in there, but I went ahead and put it in there. I just glued them in place because I'm not really going to be positioning them anyway. And then same thing with the spouts. I just kind of glued them in. So you'll put the car there, and then everything else just happen kind of in your imagination. But you can kind of see how the pictures here of the finished product, and that's why it's not here with me, is because I've actually installed it in the layout. I built a concrete pad below it using a lightweight spackling for your wall boards that you can get at the Home Depot, and I mixed that with some black or gray paint to get a concrete mixture. So then I built a foundation for that on the layout, and then I put it on there, and then I used black ballast or cinders, I think it was, to kind of fill the area around. Since it's an oil facility, they probably wouldn't have clean ground, especially in the 70s.
No.
So I mounted this in place, and you can kind of see the pictures here, seeing how it looks there. And it's such a subtle detail, but to me it added that extra level, and it really was easy. I just took some styrene strip, and I honestly don't even remember what size it was, probably 040 by 060 or something. I matched the thickness of that Walthers original gangway, and I just kind of glued them together to create the shape, had two of them side by side so you can see that. And then just built the kit. But after that was just built the kit, and it actually went together really well and really easy.
I mean, I can't argue with the results.
Yeah, it looks great. So I was pretty happy with the way it looked out. And I know it's been up. You've seen the model. You haven't seen it installed.
Yeah, I remember it was up the last time I was over there.
Yeah, but I hadn't finished installed it yet, and that's something I've done over the last couple weeks. It was still loose. So I was pretty happy with the results of it. And so for you guys listening on audio, I don't really have any pictures to share, obviously, with audio, but if you wait, you can always go onto YouTube and see the video version of the podcast where you'll see the pictures that we're talking about. But otherwise, it's basically just some etched metal that I had from Plano Products that was a screen, and it basically matched it perfectly.
Okay.
So didn't really have to go too far out of the scratch building barn to come up with this. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, look, as I said, can't argue with the results. It looks really impressive.
Good.
So
well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, well, with that, what do you say we talk some Blunami?
Sure. I mean, this is your topic, so you pitched it. So.
Yeah, I tell you what, I know I'm wearing the SoundTraxx shirt, but I really do truly believe the Blunami really is going to be the game changer. And all of you folks out there who've kind of been giving it I'll wait and see. Why don't you get one and try one out? Because the flexibility of being able to do all the programming. I mean, how many of you guys out there really love CVs? Probably not many of you. And CV math, while it's not overly difficult, it's not intuitive either.
No, it's a language you have to learn. Once you learn it, it's quite easily, I've found, but you have to learn it first.
But you have to learn it, and it takes a little bit of time. And the other thing is I've noticed, especially over the years talking to people, a lot of people will come up to me and say, well, I really want to get into this DCC, but I'm not a computer guy. And my answer is usually good. You don't have to be a computer guy, because one of the misnomers is programming.
Yeah.
Because you're not actually programming the decoder. My engineers have programmed the software to tell the decoder how to behave. What you're doing is you're making adjustments to how the decoder behaves.
Yeah.
This is where you choose things like lights or acceleration, deceleration rates, things you've seen in our Operations 101 classes.
But with Blunami now, again, you don't have to learn all of that.
Correct. With the Blunami, we can do all of that through the app. So I'm going to go ahead and dial up my phone here, and the phone has fallen asleep here, so we're going to go ahead and open it up. And I apparently can't remember my password. There it is. Now I'm going to screen record this so that we can embed this behind me. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now we're screen recording, and that'll be embedded here, either behind me or, Mackenzie, put it right here. I'm just kidding. But you'll be able to see the screen record. And so you can see I've got my 2 locomotives here. So just for grins, we're going to go ahead and go over to standard. We've got our Milwaukee Road 18. That's the first locomotive here.
Yep.
Now, when it comes to setting up the CVs, there's this gear at the bottom of the screen that you can see. We're just going to click that, and that's where we go into our settings menu, where we can do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we talked about the name, the Milwaukee Road 18. You can nickname it up there. You don't have to just remember the DCC address. You can actually name it, Norman's Milwaukee Road 18.
Yeah, so you can see there, I think we've got it. Yeah,
ST.
ST for SoundTraxx. So that's how all of our demo logos have that little prefix, so we know there are demo logos. Correct.
So when we're at a show and we open up a new app or something, we know which locomotives are ours and which ones might be a fellow operator on a nearby layout. But anyway, just to kind of show you an example here, when we go into light settings, I can change the headlight settings here, and you can see for whatever reason the headlight, according to this, is set as a prime stratolite.
It actually is.
Yeah.
Surprising.
But does anybody remember, what CV number to change that? I know you do, because you do this for a living. But, excuse me. But what CV number do you change the lighting effect? And then how do I pick, like, say, for example, if I wanted just a... You were that guy in the back of the class, weren't you? Teach. Oh, I know. That was you, wasn't it? Anyway, but if we want to change the lighting effect, before we had to know the CV number, and then we had to know what value to set it to. So if we wanted to pick, like, say for argument's sake, right now it's a Strata, let's say we wanted to make it a Mars light. What's the value? Well, there's several modifiers that are coming into play, such as, is this a phase A or phase B type light, where you'd see in ditch lights? Is it an LED or is it an incandescent bulb? And then the other thing is, do you want the Mars light to trigger, or the Mars light effect to trigger when you blow the horn, such as crossing logic? All of these are parts of that CV, so that when you set your CV using a Tsunami 2 or Econami or whatever, you have to factor those in when you're setting it up. But right here, as you can see on the screen, it's all right there for me. So if I want to make this a Mars light, I'm just going to click on the lighting effect, and you can see there's a nice menu of all the different lighting effects that we have built into the decoder, including, there's my Mars light. So when I click on that, then immediately the light changes. But you can see all these other modifiers here. Grade crossing logic is disabled, but if I enable this, so when I click on here, if I get my fingers to work with me, there it is, enabled. Now what will happen is that light will stay solid until I blow the whistle or the horn, and then the Mars light pattern will start triggering.
The Mars light pattern,
But all of these are factors of how to do it, and that's why Blunami really shines, is because we don't care what the CV number is, we don't care what the CV value is, we're just going through and selecting menus based on what we want the light to do.
Of course, I have to point out that this is part of the reason why our demo logos like to end up in weird configurations.
That is very much why it does. So whenever I'm doing a clinic, that's one of the first things I tell people is like, look, I have no idea what status these things were in the last time. Let's go ahead and we'll just play with it and see what
we'll figure it out as we go.
We'll figure it out as we go.
Because you or I will probably, be doing a demo for someone with these logos, and then we forget what we did the last time. So it's behaving weirdly, and it's like, why did I do that? Oh, I was probably presenting something, or you were, and
exactly.
These get reset a lot.
Or changed.
Yeah,
so
that too.
But in all seriousness, so that's just the settings. And I know there's other programs out there that are written by third parties that we don't have any affiliation with that also offer you the ability to do this with your computer, but it relies on you to build a connection between your DCC system
and it's still limited by the DCC bus itself.
Correct.
With this, the big advantage is that the decoder and the app are talking directly to each other.
Correct.
There's no communication happening on the track.
Correct. It's just using the track for power once we're connected. Yeah. But here's where, in my opinion, this is one of the biggest reasons I've really pushing the Blunami is because when it comes to consisting, one of the biggest challenges in all the years I've been here is getting people to run multiple trains. And what ends up happening is they will use their DCC system command station, and they'll use these buttons to get trains to run, but they really don't know what they're doing. And Correct. What ends up happening a lot of times is the DCC address, for example, this guy's number 52, this one's 18, they get blocked into these things as part of a consist, and then if you want to run it separately, you don't get the same behavior.
Correct, and you have to dissolve the consist for it to go back. And the other thing is they're not getting all the behaviors that they Correct. Should be in a consist, because a lot of times with those, either it will only send the function commands to the lead unit. Let's say it's number 18 here, and then this one will get nothing.
Right.
Unless you specifically go into advanced consist and set it up.
Right, and that takes a little bit more time going back to CVs again.
And switching leads can take a
couple minutes, because when you change the CV values back and forth, and that's if you've pre-calculated them.
Yeah.
If you haven't pre-calculated them and have them ready to go, now it takes even longer because you're sitting there writing on a piece of paper or counting fingers and toes and whatnot to make it happen. But the Blunami app makes it easy. I'm going to show you quickly how easy this is. So down here on the bottom of the screen, you can see this little chain link with a little slider bar next to it. And we're just going to click that. And each device can talk to up to 4 consists of any number of locomotives you want to run together. So if you have a consist of, say, 4 or 5 locomotives, great. You have your lead unit, you have any number of middle units, and then you have your rear. And so that's one consist of, say, 6 locomotives or 5 locomotives.
And then in the app, the big thing for me is you can actually configure what each locomotive does. So
Correct. And we'll get to that point here in just a second, but first let's just build our consist. So with these guys here, let's just say because they're A units, let's make it consist number A. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click on the A, and then now when you see that chain link, you can actually see that it has the green icon showing that it's active, and there's an A. And my Milwaukee Road 18 is the lead unit. That's the first one I've added. It's the lead unit in the consist. So we're going to go ahead and start it up. And I'll just give it a non-zero motor command. Now when I go over to the second unit, this is my PA. Now I can do the same thing. You can see I have control. We're going to go ahead and click the same thing. So when I click the consist button, consist A, now you'll notice that my throttle has disappeared. That's your indication to let you know that this locomotive is part of a consist with another locomotive. And so in this case, there's 2 questions we're going to ask. Is it a middle loco or a rear loco, as you can see in the screen? So we're going to make sure it's a rear. And then is this facing forward, or as I click it, is it facing backwards? And now these locomotives are consistent. So let's get the second unit fired up. And we're going to couple the locomotives up. Now, really quickly while we're doing that, I'm just going to do a really quick, make sure the momentum rates match. Because the momentum rates may not match. Yeah, so this is 50 and 100. And that's 50 and 100. So these locomotives should run together.
You know what you probably did? You probably did this exact demo at a trade show.
It's very likely.
And you set the momentums the same for it.
So now you can see we're in forward, so that's going to be going this way because this locomotive is facing backwards. So we're going forward, we're going to blow our horn, ring our bell, and when I start moving in the forward direction, you can see that the two locomotives move together.
But as you can hear, only the lead loco has the functions.
Now when I set my brakes, for example, you see that both locomotives come to a stop because I've set the brakes, and the app intelligently knows to send that brake command to both locomotives.
Units. Yeah.
So let's say we're at the end of our run now. All the functions are being sent appropriately as you see fit. Now when we go to the other locomotive, this is the rear unit here. Now you see there's a button at the top of the screen, or in the middle of the screen, I guess. It says Make Lead.
Top of the list.
Top of the list, fair enough. So when I push Make Lead, now you can see my throttle has appeared. And when I go back to the 18, you'll see that the throttle is gone because it knows it's now a trailing unit. And look, rear locomotive facing backwards because the app intelligently knows this command.
It's able to retain all those
now,
things.
When I'm in forward, we're going to blow our whistle, and you hear it's a different horn, and now we're going to go ahead and move forward. We're going to set our brakes, release our brakes, and now our trains move together just like they did before, with the lead unit being the horn and the bell and everything. That way you get a realistic consist, and therefore one of the biggest things that I'm going to turn off my bell. We're not selling ice cream here.
Ironic, that's one of my old jobs.
I know. I didn't want you to have PTSD. But when I send my commands out to the locomotives, they both respond because the app is intelligently sending that command appropriately. Now, I'm going to go ahead and mute my locomotives so you can hear us a little better for our final conclusion here. But as Norman mentioned, we can set that. So we're going to go back to our gear settings over here. And then the second to last option is consist functions. And this is where when I can determine which functions are sent to which locomotive in the consist based on its position. So as you've seen in one of our recent YouTube videos, when it comes to head end power, I've got two locomotives here. Let's say this one was still the lead. The head end power would be coming out of this one because, as I mentioned, it's loud, it's noisy, and the crew doesn't want to hear it in the cab. So they put it in the second, and this is where you would do this, is you would do this in these settings. So when you go into your lead loco here, you have your list of functions, and every one of them has a checkbox that you can turn on or off.
Well, except one.
Well, the headlight.
Oh, coupler.
Well, the coupler's off.
Yeah.
I can turn it on.
I thought you said all of them were on, so I said except
I said
one.
turn all of them on or off as you desire.
Gotcha.
See, listening, you're too busy. Ooh, teach. But anyway, I digress.
You're not going to let that go, are you?
No, I'm going to hold that over your head for a long time. But now when I go to my middle locomotives, you can see that there's no bell, there's no air horn, there's no short horn, but the dynamic brakes, the RPM plus and minus, and the mute functions are all enabled on my trailing. And the rear unit, again, same thing. No air horn, no bell, no short horn. I do have my dynamic brakes, RPM plus and minus, but this is where the coupler is defaulted on because it's typically the one then that would be coupling to your train. So when I send my F13 command, the rear unit, or which would be the rear unit, is the one that would play that sound. And this is where it is. Again, no CVs are needed to sit here and do this. You can just go through and make the decisions for yourself. Now, the best part is, let's go back to my operation screen here. And when I go to my Milwaukee Road 18, I can simply uncheck the link for the consist. Now this locomotive is an independent locomotive again. Now the F8 mute is still active, so we're going to go ahead and, unmute it. And then now when I start moving my locomotive, it's an independent locomotive again. All I did was uncheck it out of the consist. But when I go back to my PA, look, you can still see that the consist is still enabled. So when you're running helpers, you can add and subtract helpers from your train really quickly and easy using the app without having to go in and do all this scientific, bit data math on CVs. So it really does make it, whoops, wrong thing. I'm trying to go back and shut this guy up again.
There you go.
But it really is quick and easy and fun. And so I encourage you guys, this is one of the biggest selling points in my opinion, because it makes our model trains again more fun.
Yeah.
And the other people will say things about the technology, oh, I don't want to use my cell phone. Well, there's two things. Number one, it's still a DCC decoder. So if you still want to use this thing,
yes, you
still can. But the reality is once upon a time, and this probably predates you, is we all sat around in a pit in our layouts with a whole bunch of power packs surrounding us and 1,000 toggle switches so we could run our trains around on various sections of the layout. Yep. Now we have DCC so that we can talk to a single locomotive instead of a section of track. This is just another progression in the form. And the best part is, guys, the app's free. You have a wireless throttle in your pocket.
Yeah, and the big thing is you don't have to pay for it. You already have it.
You already have it. The app's free to download.
Yeah.
And here's the best thing. The battery life on your phone is going to be a whole lot better than the battery life on a wireless throttle. Yep. Changing out AA batteries at the end of every session. I mean,
instead you just plug it in. So
instead you just plug in your phone when you're done at the end of the night. So guys, there's a lot about Blunami. I would encourage you to try it out. And I will say, if you have any questions, thoughts, don't hesitate to call us. Either Norman or myself. We're always happy to help answer anything we can for you. Mm-hmm. And for those of you guys, I know we're in the process of planning for this, but we've got Train Fest coming up too.
Yes.
Train Fest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So
both of us are going to be there.
We do want to make sure to encourage you guys to come out and say hi. Hey, tell us what you think about the podcast. Give us some thoughts, give us your ideas, and we'd love to hear from you. So with that, that's everything I've got to talk about this time.
Yeah.
I think we're good to go. So guys, with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of Train Talk from Milepost 141. This is the SoundTraxx Sound Bites from our address at 141 Burnett Drive.
Yes.
And
a lot of people didn't get that.
Manufacturing ID 141.
Yes.
So, guys, with that, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching and listening wherever you are in the world. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye.